Today we are going to be solving linear equations. Linear equations, you'll see their variables always will have a highest exponent of 1. So for example, say if our variable is an x, you will see it as x. Okay, that is x to the first. Okay, so you will not see any x squared or x to the thirds and so on. To solve linear equations, we need to do the opposite operation. So in the original problem, if we are adding, to solve for that variable, we need to subtract and vice versa. And the same thing with multiply and divide. Then when we get into two-step equations, that means that we're going to have 2 steps to solve for that variable. We will have to add or subtract first, then tackle that number that has the variable in it. Okay, so let's look at our first examples. X plus 4 equals 9. I need to get x all by itself. So I have to move this positive 4. Well, I'm adding, so to get rid of it, I have to subtract 4. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So the 4's cancel out, so I have x equals 9 minus 4 is 5. Okay. So in this next one, x minus 7 equals 2. I'm going to circle this x because that's what I want to get all by itself. So I have to add 7. I have to do the opposite of subtraction to move it to the other side because I want those to add up to 0. So x equals 7 plus 2 is 9. Hopefully this is all review. Okay. We will do, a few examples of each. If you need to pause or stop this video at any time, please do so. The next one, we need to get the x all by itself. So this is a positive 3, so I have to subtract 3 from both sides. So I have x equals negative 8. These are all one-step equations. You see, we're doing one step and we get our x all by itself, or our variable. For the next one, I need to get this d all by itself, so I have to do the opposite of minus 8 and add 8 to both sides. So d equals 11. The next one, 4x equals negative 16. Well, 4x, that means 4 times x, so we're multiplying. So I have to do the opposite and divide. Okay, so I'm going to divide each side by 4. So I get x equals negative 4. So then this next one, it means negative 3x is negative 3 times x. So I have to do the opposite of multiplication and divide each side by negative 3. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. 3/4 x equals 9. Well, I'm multiplying again, 3/4 times x, so I have to divide. Now, whenever you divide something by a fraction, you're actually going to multiply it by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply each side by 4/3. So on the left side of the equal sign, I can do cross multiplication and cancel all these out. Okay, because they will simplify to 1. On this side, well, 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes 9 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. This next one, I'm multiplying, so I have to divide. But like I said, when we divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So negative 2 over 1. So these will simplify to 1. So we are left with x. Negative 7 times negative 2 is positive 14 over 1, which is just 14. Okay, these next ones are two-step equations. Okay, so I'm going to have two steps. So I will, first one here, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides because I need to get this 2x all by itself. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 1, so I have 2x equals 5. Now I'm multiplying here, so I have to do the opposite and divide. So I have x equals 5 halves. You could write that as 2.5. Okay, either way. Or 2 1/2. Those are all ways to write your answer. But remember, 5 halves is a simplified improper fraction. For this next one, 3y minus 4 equals 11. I need to get the 3y all by itself first. So I have to get rid of this negative 4. Well, I do the opposite and add 4. So I have 3y equals 15. Now to get rid of this 3 in front of the y, I'm multiplying, so I have to do the opposite and divide. So I get y equals 5. Remember, pause, stop this at any time if I'm going too fast. For this one, I need to get the negative 4x all by itself first, so I have to add 2 to both sides, because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 10 plus 2 is 12. Now I'm multiplying, so I have to do the opposite and divide. So I have x equals negative 3. Okay, this next one, 3/4 x, I want to get that all by itself. So how do I get rid of a plus 6? I subtract 6 first. So I have 3/4 x equals 9 minus 6 is 3. Now this is where we're multiplying, so we'd have to divide each side, but when we divide by a fraction, we're actually multiplying by the reciprocal. Remember, the reciprocal is where we just flip the numerator and the denominator, the top and bottom number. So on the left side, these will all cross multiply to equal out to 1. And then on the right side, well, these 3's simplify to 1, and I'm left with 4. Now, with this next one, if you notice, you have variables on both sides of the equal sign, and you have terms without variables. Those are called constants on both sides also. What we need to do is get our terms with variables on one side of the equal sign, and our terms without variables on the other. So there's many ways that you can do this. Me personally, I like to have my variables on the left side. It's just the way I like to see it. So for this one, I'm going to subtract 9p from both sides. Okay. Let me erase that and rewrite it real quick. Now, these are going to cancel out on the right side. So I'm left with 7 minus 9 is negative 2p. Now, I'm just going to go back up into this original problem, and I'm going to move the 13 over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 13 from both sides. So I have negative 5 minus 13 is negative 18. I'm just combining a couple steps. Okay. Now I can get p all by itself by dividing each side by negative 2. And I get p equals positive 9. Okay. So there's many ways, we could have moved the p's to the right side if we wanted. Now this next one, I have to distribute, okay, the 3 to both terms inside the parentheses on the left side. So 3 times 5 is 15x. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. Then I'm also going to have to distribute the negative 2 to everything on the right side. So inside that parenthesis, negative 2 times negative x is positive 2x. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Then I have to bring this negative 12x down. We do not multiply this negative 12 to the negative, this negative 2 to the negative 12 because it's not inside that parenthesis. On the right side, I need to combine like terms. So 2 minus 12 is negative 10x. Okay. Now it's just like that last problem. I'm going to add 10x to both sides because I like my variables on the left side. And then I'm going to add 24 to both sides. So I'd have 25x equals positive 10. Then I divide each side by 25. I'd be left with x equals 25ths, which simplifies to 2/5. Always simplify your fractions. Okay? If you have questions, please ask. This is solving linear equations, pretty much all in a nutshell. All right, have a good day.